Welcome back to Hustle to Holdings, where we explore how people turn hustle into long-term ownership. Today's guest is someone who proves that ownership is about execution, not age. He's a real estate investor and the founder and managing partner of Kinney Property Group. At just 22 years old, he's built a 37-unit rental portfolio, flipped multiple properties, and has been involved in over $10 million worth of real estate transactions. This episode is about discipline, systems, building long-term wealth early with a focus on principles anyone can apply. Connor, welcome to Hustle to Holdings.
Good to be with you. Thanks so much.
Yes, I'm so excited for this episode because, like I said before, there's not a lot of people in their 20s that are currently focused on real estate investing. So I wanted to touch up, what you did before even getting involved into real estate.
Yeah. So I actually, I've always kind of had that entrepreneurial itch. And ultimately, in high school, I was not an A student at all. I was terrible in school. And I kind of, whenever I went to college, it was kind of forced, hey, you need to go to college, you need to get this 4-year degree. And I was told, hey, if you get the degree, you get this big six-figure job, and then you work for 40 years and then you retire. And that was just never something that seemed interesting to me. So when I went to college, I was there for about 2 semesters. And ultimately, I had started a vending machine business, and then I had started flipping clothes on the side as well, like a vintage clothing company. And that was way more fun than what I was learning in college. And so I ended up, the vending machine did not make any money, so I just sold them. And then the clothing made a little bit of money, but it wasn't enough for my time. But both of those concepts taught me, hey, I really want to start a business and work for myself and not work for somebody else. So I ultimately dropped out of college. And during that time, I was actually working part time for a real estate investor as well. And so that was going really well. And so I dropped out of school and said, hey, I'm going to go full fledged into real estate. And several months later, I bought my first duplex when I was 19. And that was my intro to real estate.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack here. I
Yeah.
mean, honestly, a lot of millionaires have dropped out of college, so you already knew what you wanted. I love that. Tell me, where did you get your entrepreneurial spirit? You're definitely an entrepreneur. So where did you get that?
Yeah, I've been really blessed with an awesome family. My dad's a big entrepreneur. All my siblings, we all have our own businesses. So it's very encouraging for me whenever other people around me are starting their own businesses. And so we kind of all feed off each other. Both of my older sisters went to college, and then my younger brother and I, we did not go to college, and we both have successful businesses. So it's super fun. I've been encouraged by other people around me. Now, I will say there's been people who have definitely doubted, questioned me, and criticized me for dropping out of school. And, that's okay. I think everybody feels that. But ultimately, I've surrounded myself with like minded people who have really encouraged me to, hey, go pursue your dream of real estate. And it's paid off for me really well.
I love that. I love that. So what did you do with the real estate investor that you first worked with? How did that inspire you?
Yeah, so I actually I don't have any family in real estate, or I didn't know anything about real estate, and it intrigued me. I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and ultimately it was kind of this principle of, hey, buy assets, stay away from liabilities. So I was like, man, I need to buy some rental property. And so I looked up real estate meetups close to me, and I ended up going to this real estate meetup. I was 18 years old. I sat on the front row. I knew nothing about real estate, but I was like, hey, this is the room I need to be in. And ended up meeting an investor he sat next to me on the front row, and we sparked up a conversation. And ultimately he was like, hey, just, come shadow me for a day. And then ultimately that turned into me working for him part time while I was still going to school. And then ultimately I dropped out of college and worked for him full time. And then about a year later, I went off on my own to build my own business.
So what did this investor specialize in?
So he did multifamily, new construction,
Okay.
single family rentals. Most of his stuff was multifamily, which got me hooked on multifamily. So I did a lot of managing for him,
Nice.
leasing, and so kind of the backbones of real estate, which is really important. Like people think, oh, you just buy a property and it's cash flow, and not the case most of the time. The cash flow is awesome, but you still have to manage it. You've got to learn kind of the ins and outs of real estate. So that was really valuable experience because I really got to, put my foot in the door and just really be in the business, which was awesome. And that experience has helped me tenfold.
Yeah, no, definitely. Trust me, it's the same thing. I learned the opposite in which I just bought and I was like, I'll figure out property management, evictions, arrested tenants. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So you did it
And
the right way.
you gotta, the best way to learn though, and I'd encourage anybody is you gotta learn by doing. So, I've transacted over $10 million of deals and I mean, I'm still learning all the time. I mean, there's things that I'm like, I thought I knew this, but I've never seen this in a contract before, or I've never seen a seller do this. So just the more deals you do, the more you learn and the more you grow.
Amazing. So tell me about that first duplex deal. Did you work a W-2? How did you get pre-approved?
Yeah.
How old were you?
I was 19. I just turned 19.
No way. So tell me about how you even got approved to buy that property.
Yeah, so I started working for that investor when I was 18 and he kind of encouraged me, "Hey, you should look into buying a duplex or a fourplex." So I mean, I just started cold calling on the phones, cold calling duplex owners and fourplex owners and I had started reaching out to some banks because I didn't have a W-2. I was just a 1099 employee with this person. And so I didn't, and I mean, I think I had 25 or $3,000 saved up. I mean, it was nothing, but I was like, I really want to buy a property. And so I ended up learning about, well, I got rejected from a ton of banks. I would go to these banks that are like, "Oh, you don't have any real estate experience. You don't have money, no way." So I thought, hey, there's got to be a way to overcome this. And so I learned about seller financing. And seller financing, you don't have to have any credentials whatsoever. It's really just what you and the seller negotiate. And so I thought, hey, that is my way in. If I can get a seller to seller finance me a property, that's my way in. So after cold calling hundreds of duplex owners, getting rejected, getting told no, I found one person and we actually signed the deal. This is crazy, on his truck bed in a McDonald's parking lot. So it's probably my favorite story ever. That was my first deal, and ultimately I bought that deal for $235,000, and I put $20,000 down on that deal. And he financed a 19-year-old kid that much money. I still own that property today. I've done multiple transactions with him since as well. He's a good friend of mine. And you're probably asking, how did I get the $20,000 down? Well, during the time I was cold calling, I actually found a fourplex that was a smoking deal. It was just in a rougher location. And so I actually wholesaled that property to a friend of mine and I made $20,000 on that assignment fee. So I just put the assignment fee for the down payment on the duplex. So it was kind of a perfect storm of, finding these deals off market. I timed it perfectly because I got the assignment fee and I was able to put that money down for the down payment on the duplex.
So for those who don't know, what is seller financing? What did you negotiate with the seller?
Yeah, so seller financing is where the seller becomes the bank. So let's say you've got a property, for instance, we'll use my duplex that I bought as an example. I bought the duplex for $235,000. The seller typically owns the property outright, and so they don't owe anything on the property. So I say, hey, I'll give you this price and then I'll give you this down payment and then I'll pay you over 10, 15, 20 years, whatever you guys negotiate. So basically, you're turning the seller into a bank and then you just, instead of paying the bank monthly mortgage payments, you pay the seller monthly mortgage payments. The huge advantage of seller financing is that everything is negotiable. I've negotiated some crazy terms and it's so much fun because with a bank, you're put in this little box and you can't escape the box.
Yep.
And so with seller financing, I mean, there's so much you can do and there's so many terms you can negotiate. I've gotten, lower interest rates, lower down payments. There's no qualifications you need. You don't have to have a W-2 job to qualify. I mean, literally, there's no qualifications. It's all up to what you and the seller want to do. And ultimately, what, I go off three principles. You want them to know you, like you, trust you. And if you can build trust with the seller, you can get terms that nobody else can get. So that's what's been the big advantage is for me starting off. I'm 22 now. I've got about 40 doors, and
Let's
I've
go.
done most of that with little to no money down through seller financing. And it's allowed me to scale because I can negotiate lower down payments with these sellers. And so I get access to these deals without having to do big syndications. Like I own them myself, which is super fun.
That is amazing. For me, I didn't scale it fast enough because I didn't learn about seller financing
Yeah.
until right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
so, so my deals, I had to quit my 1099 job. As soon as the bank was like, you can't have a 1099, I'm like, okay, I quit. Found a W-2, and then I had to wait a year. Okay, buy another one, a year, buy another one. So that
Yeah.
just shows the power of seller financing.
Yeah. It opens so many doors, which is just it's so cool because everything's negotiable, which is it's just so much fun. And right now, with the higher interest rate environment, it's harder to make deals work. And so if someone's willing to do the seller financing, you can make deals that wouldn't necessarily work through a bank, but you can make them work if you do seller financing because maybe you can negotiate a lower interest rate. Maybe you can negotiate a lower down payment. Maybe you can negotiate, a step up payment or something. You can get real creative to make these deals cash flow and work.
What was the interest rate that you got for the duplex deal?
That was 5%. So it was 5% interest only for the first 2 years, and then it goes to 5% principal and interest for the remaining 28 years on the loan. I got a 30-year term on that one.
Nice. It's
So,
like a bank, but better.
oh yeah, it was like a bank, but instead of having to put 25 or 30% down, I put about 8% down, and
Yeah.
I had no qualifications
And you stuck at
whatsoever.
that 5% too, which is really good because
Yeah.
right now they would be at 7.
Yeah, exactly. It's 5% fixed for the remaining, 20, that was about 3 years ago, so it's about 27 years left on the loan. So it's just fun because it's fun. It's all negotiable. That's what I really enjoy about it. People ask me, it's fun to close the deals, but honestly speaking, I enjoy the negotiation part. Like that is so much fun for me. Negotiating with the seller. I mean, it's been super fun, and I'm so glad I learned it early on.
That is awesome. Okay, so tell me about the mortgage payment and then what rent did you receive and the cash flow that you received from the first deal.
Yeah. So the mortgage payment on that one. So the interest only payment was, gosh, I think it was around 800 or 900 bucks a month, and it was bringing in like 14
Beautiful.
1400 or 1500 a month. Now, obviously, with taxes and insurance, the cash flow was not great. The crazy story is the day after I bought it, I had a hoarder who was living in there, and she just abandoned the unit, which was, oh, that's another story for another time. But we ended up getting it. I spent my whole summer, renovating it myself. I got it leased out, and now, with principal and interest payments, my payments about 15 to 1600 a month with principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, and I'm bringing in about 2350 a month on that
Wow.
property. So it's cash flowing over 300 bucks a door. Uh,
Yeah, which is amazing. Look, when starting your real estate portfolio, the first few deals, they're not going to cash flow so much. You're not going to get $2,000 off of your first like
yeah,
duplex. No, you're going to have to add it up. It's going to start at 300, then 500, and then it compounds into, that passive, quote unquote passive, right? Because you're still dealing
yeah,
with tenants income. So, we don't expect you, sometimes even some investors, even big ones, as well, like Brandon Turner, they say if you are breaking even, that's okay. At least you're breaking even. You're not at a loss.
yeah. And two, what's cool is, I put $20,000 down, and I have this year. And, I mean, I might already have it back, but I already have probably a majority of my investment back in cash flow. So I almost have no money into the deal, and it's paying me, 600 or 700 bucks a month in net cash flow. And so that's cool. the cash flow is fun, but also it appreciates every year. I get the
Yep.
depreciation for my taxes, which is
Yep.
fun. And then also, you get the principal debt pay down as well. So that's what's fun about real estate is, now I own an asset that's worth almost 300,000 and I have almost no money into it and it's cash flowing every month. Like that's the true power of real estate.
Yep. That's definitely the truth. So tell me how that one little duplex compounded into 40 units now, not even 37. I need to
Yeah.
update this. 40 units.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, so the goal, I love small multifamily. That's been a fantastic asset class for me. That's most of my properties. And so I bought a couple other duplexes after that. I actually, last year, I bought another duplex from the seller of my first one. And so that was super fun. And then just recently, I bought a 29 unit deal, which was that's my biggest deal so far. That was seller financed as
All of
well.
it?
And so
All
that's,
of them are seller finance. All of
I
your
have
deals?
I have two that aren't, but everything else is seller financed. So and that's what's allowed me to scale is, on this even, we'll talk about the 29 unit deal. That was a $4 million deal. If I'm 4 million, I'm gonna have to put a million down, 20 to 25%.
Yep.
That's crazy. I can't do that. So I was able to negotiate a significantly lower down payment. I have a 3.25% interest on that property. It's fully stabilized. So that's a home run deal just because of the seller financing terms I was able to negotiate.
Wait, so what are you doing? I need to know this. I need to copy you. Are you just cold calling sellers?
Yeah, so this was fun because I cold called this guy about a duplex. I love duplexes, they're my favorite properties. And so if I see something or if I'm driving, so in this instance, I was running some errand and I saw this duplex and it looked like it needed a little bit of work. So I cold called the seller. He said he wasn't really interested, so I followed up like a month later and ultimately he was like, "Yeah, I might be interested. My wife and I are getting kind of older." So I said, "Okay." So every time I call somebody, I look to see if they own anything else. Because what I've learned is if you can buy people's portfolios, like I bought a three
Right.
duplex package from a seller, anything that you can buy, kind of a portfolio, you always get a better deal on. So I looked and they own 27 other units. So I called them and I said, "Hey, I see you own these other properties. Most of them were duplexes. There's a 12 unit, some fourplexes." So I said, "Hey, would you guys be totally opposed to selling the whole portfolio?" And ultimately, we kind of went back and forth. And then he invited me to coffee actually, and we talked it through, and we were able to get a deal done. So I that one duplex turned into 27 more units, ended up being a whole 29 unit portfolio deal just from one cold call.
What? That's amazing. So, wait, so what terms and how were you able, one, what terms were you able to negotiate with the seller?
Yeah.
Two, how did you get the cash down and how much down did you need for this portfolio?
Yeah, so this now I don't want to get the listeners' hopes up because this is kind of a unicorn deal. I've never negotiated a deal like this before. Most of my deals, the down payments are between 3 and 10% down. Is kind of I go for the lowest down possible, but typically people are going to want 5 to 10% down. And so this deal, I bought it for 4 million. I was able to negotiate about a 2.5% down payment. So it was $100,000 down, and I that was funded just by my own capital.
Yeah.
And ultimately, after I got prorated rents at closing and some deposits, I ended up putting about $77,000 down on the deal. So it's about 2% down,
Wow.
and then they financed it. It's a 15-year term on the loan or 15-year balloon payment.
Okay.
So, and then I've got, yeah, 3.25% interest payments to them.
That is amazing. So the balloon payment expires in 15 years. That
Yep.
means you have to pay off a certain amount within those 15 years.
Yep.
What is your strategy for
Yeah,
that?
what'll happen is, obviously I'll get the appreciation in 15 years, so it'll be worth significantly more than 4
Mhm,
million.
mhm,
So I have two options. I can either sell it and probably do a 1031 exchange and go buy a bigger apartment or something, or
mhm.
I can do a cash out refinance or just a rate and term refinance. So those are my two options. I mean, it cash flows fantastic. I'm paying down the note. So in 15 years, I'd probably want to keep them, but if not, I can probably sell it for a good profit and then do a 1031 exchange and go buy something bigger.
Exactly. I'm just saying this and I wanted to reiterate this because a lot of people do get afraid of balloon payments. They're like, "Oh my
Yep.
God, how am I going to find this amount?" So there's always a strategy. You just mentioned two exit strategies in mind for this portfolio. That's how one, it was a good buy. And wait, did you have to do any sort of renovations to these properties?
So it's 100% occupied right now, which is awesome. Well, it's about to be 100%. I have one unit that's vacant, but I've already pre-leased it. So it's 100% occupied. A couple of them need new roofs, and that's about it. Some of them, most of it, what I like is they're long-term tenants, and so there's room to increase rents, which will increase my NOI, which will be awesome. And ultimately, the goal is just to keep it stabilized. I'll do maybe a roof a year for the properties that need it, and then
Yeah.
just fixing some small deferred maintenance issues. And that's pretty much it. It's pretty stabilized, and they're mostly in great locations, and so that's a huge help as well.
That is awesome. And are you planning to raise any rents for these properties?
Yeah, yeah, we'll raise rents every year.
Okay.
If
Standard.
people move out, we'll do a little nice make ready slash renovation and then push it up to top market rent. If people want to renew, then we'll just do a slight increase every year.
Yeah. And this is a unicorn deal, but you worked for this deal. So you can find random unicorn deals if you hustle, if you cold call, if you put in the work that you put in, because it
Yeah.
wasn't just handed to you. You worked for this deal. You negotiated this deal.
Yeah, I think too, just some encouragement for the listeners is try to, I don't think of myself as a real estate investor. I think of myself as an opportunist.
Yeah.
So if you can, that was one duplex that I called. If I would have just said, oh, just kind of been lazy about it and said, oh, I'll just see if I can buy this one, and I never looked at what else he owned, I probably wouldn't have got the deal of
Yeah.
his whole portfolio. So I saw, hey, he owns this other properties. I did some research on him. I saw that him and his wife were getting older, so this might be a good seller finance situation. So you got to put in some effort and kind of create your own opportunity. And ultimately, when we had that coffee meeting and we got the terms taken care of, like that was a reward. And now, that's the best deal I've ever done.
Oh, yeah, for sure. How did you find these owners? How do you find this list of people to cold call?
Yeah, so I don't use any list. I actually use an app called Landglide, and it'll show the owner's information. It pulls it from the county. So
Oh,
whatever county
nice.
you're in, it'll pull the data from the county. And then you can use any like skip tracing software to actually find their contact info. I use truepeoplesearch.com, which is free, or sometimes if I can't find it on there, I have a paid one that's called smartskip.com, and that one is a little bit more accurate, so you can go on there, type in their info, and then it'll give you their phone numbers and their email addresses, and then yeah, you just call them up, and that's been my best way to do it.
I love that. I love that. You're a perfect example of hustling, and the fact that you're doing it so young, probably gonna retire by 30, but
Yeah,
you're
that's
probably
the
not
goal.
gonna want to. You're probably knowing you and the way that you are, you're probably gonna be like, "Oh, I'm bored. What else can I do?"
Yeah. And two, it's kind of funny because now that I've closed the deal, I'm trying to find some more right now. I really do. I think that might just be my ADHD. I have like go go go, but I love the negotiations. I love building the relationship with the sellers, and so that's really fun for me. Like closing the deal is obviously fun, but now it's like okay, let's find another one. So I'm pumped.
What tips for negotiation do you have? Because you're obviously a great negotiator.
Yeah, I would say, I follow the 80-20 rule. So you want to let them do 80% of the talking, you want to do 20% of the talking. A lot of times, what happens is whether you're doing a cash deal, seller finance deal, whatever it may be, when someone's talking with the seller, they're just talking, 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 and the seller is like, oh man. But if you can really listen to what the seller is saying, typically they'll give you the answer. So the 29 unit deal, they were getting older. When I talked to the guy, he said, yeah, my wife manages it. She's getting older. She's starting to have some health issues. He was like, we love the cash flow. but we just can't manage it anymore. So right there, without me saying anything, he's telling me, hey, we need to sell it because she's getting older, she can't manage it. We like the cash flow. So right there, I'm going, hey, maybe they don't want a cash sale. Maybe they want to do a seller financing deal where I
Wow.
take over, I manage it, I'm the owner, and then I just pay them monthly distributions every month. So right there, so if I try to do a lot of listening, and it's contrary to a lot of what other people say is, hey, you've got to use the specific language and do these sales tactics. It's not. It's a lot of listening and listening to, hey, how can you be the solution to their problem? And how can you, kind of put those things together and come up with a creative offer that they're interested in. So that was ultimately why it worked out so well because they were like, man, this is exactly what we're looking for is, someone to take it over. We don't need this lump sum of cash. We just need monthly payments where we don't have to manage it or take care of anything anymore.
Did you get what are some objections that you got that you were able to handle?
Yeah, so the one of the common objections I get is, oh, well, if the property burns down or if something happens, how are we covered? And I say, hey, no worries. I put your entity on my insurance policies as additionally insured. So if something happens, they're additionally insured as well through my insurance. Another one is, I'm 22 years old, so they're like, how much experience do you have? Oh, you're too young or something like that. And I say, okay, no worries. Go drive by my properties. You can go see how I take care of them. And also, I have referral, like my other sellers who I've done seller financing before, they've written out little drafts of, hey, we love working with Connor. He's never missed a payment. He's easy to work with. So I show them those and I say, hey, here's their phone numbers. You can call the previous sellers who I've done this with and talk to them, ask them questions. And I think a lot of it is just being, candid with them. What's the plan with the property? My goal is, hey, how can we increase value? How can we take care of it? And so I think you really gotta build that relationship with them. It goes back to what we talked about earlier is getting trust with them. You want them to know you, like you, and trust you. And the big emphasis on trust there. If they can trust you and they see what your track record is, that's very, very important.
Mm.
Even on the first duplex deal I did, where I signed it at McDonald's on the guy's truck, he told me, he said, Connor, you're 19. I'm going to be angry if this doesn't work out. And I said, don't worry, this will be great. And ultimately, he's since then done several deals with me. I mean, we talk on the phone, and so like it's just doing what you say you're going to do, and that builds trust with people. And then whenever you get an objection, you can say, "Hey, here's my track record," and then typically it kind of overcomes that because it's all about seller financing is all about trust.
Mm. I love that. I love that. You have so much knowledge already at 22, which is freaking awesome from
Thank you.
experience, of course.
Hey, and
How do
I'm
you,
still learning. I get
of
I
course.
get thrown some stuff from sellers, and I'm like, "Oh, I've never heard that before." So it's all you've got to learn, and it's all about just putting the pieces together. Be the problem solver.
I love that. How do you start typically a cold call?
Yeah. So man, whew. So it depends on what it is. Like an easy one that I do, if you already own a property, I will call the neighboring owners and say, "Hey, my name's Connor. I'm your new property neighbor. I just bought this property over here." Bam, what does that do? It gives you instant credibility. Hey, this guy actually already owns one next to me. Then typically they're like, "Oh, how much you buy it for? What's your rent over there?" And then it's like you're already making a relationship there. So that's been super valuable because when you say that, not only do you get to learn information about the neighborhood, but typically they're like, hey, what else? Are you looking to buy anything else? And I'll tell them, I'm like, yeah, I'm looking to buy some more. That's actually why I was calling yours. I'm not, would you be interested in seeing an offer? And they're like, not right now, but since you own one over here, I'll give you the first shot at it whenever I'm ready to sell. So I've got deals like that. So saying, hey, I'm your property neighbor or I own one kind of down the road from you, like that's huge because it gives you instant credibility. Another line I'll say if I don't own anything in the area, I'll say, hey, I just bought, a recent, or like if I'm calling an apartment, I'd say, hey, I just bought a 29 unit deal I'm looking to buy. some other apartments, would you be totally opposed to seeing an offer for the apartments? It's a great property, and I try to pick a detail
Mm.
specifically from that property. So the other day I was calling a 50 unit building and it was bright orange. And I would not keep it bright orange, but I called the guy and I said, "Hey, the bright orange has just so much pop. It's so unique." And he ultimately gave me a call back. And so I think if you can pick out little details, because what happens is these people are getting called all the time and it's the same script. Hey, blah, blah, blah. Would you be open to an offer? And they can tell, but if you just kind of bring some personality into it, you describe something at the property, that's super important. Another fun thing is if you see something wrong with it, you can point it out like, hey, I drove by your property. I actually own some apartments myself. I saw your gutter fell down or something. Like try to point something out where it strikes curiosity and then call you back.
Great. That's key. That's key. And they will call you back because
Yeah.
it's not generic.
Yeah, and just make it, be yourself. Make it a relationship. Try to just, obviously you want to buy the property, but don't be so salesy. Just try to be genuine and build a relationship with them, and that's really worked well for me. And it's a lot of following up too. You're not
Yeah.
rarely are you going to call someone and they're going to say, "Oh my gosh, I was looking for someone to cold call me on a Wednesday afternoon and yes, I want to sell you my property." It takes a lot of following up, building the relationship. People really do like, when people follow up with them. So I'm super persistent, and a lot of my sellers that I've done deals with have said, "Hey, you were the only one who followed up consistently," or "You were the only one who reached out when no one else reached out. So that's why we decided to go with you." So even though you might feel discouraged, you might feel rejected if someone doesn't answer, be persistent and keep going.
I love that. So let's talk about your company now. To help you fund deals, right? Right now I see you're targeting the bigger ones. You're targeting apartment buildings. I see that as you should. You're
Yeah.
progressing, but you still need to put some certain percent down. You need to fund these deals.
Yeah.
So I saw that you have Kinney Property Group. So why did you start it and what are you doing now?
Yeah, the goal is kind of, I have, the personal brand, which is me, and then Kinney Property Group is more of I would say more of the real estate company and the property management
Okay.
company for all the tenants as well. So all of my properties going forward will be branded with the Kinney Property Group, and ultimately it gives myself some more credibility to have like an actual, real estate company. I mean, even though I've
Mhm.
had other things, it's just this is more of one for the management side as well. And as I do bigger deals and I start raising capital from private investors, it's super important to have not only a personal brand but a real company brand name as well that has a good track record, and people know when they see that logo, which I think is super important.
Mhm. So is that what you're doing right now? Like, what are you focusing on today? Like, what does your company do? Are you only focusing on property management, more acquisitions? What's your focus?
Yeah, we're doing more acquisitions right
Okay.
now. That's the biggest thing, is building the rental portfolio. Obviously, we manage everything in house. We're managing all our current assets, and ultimately the goal is buying some more apart, like bigger, kind of 29-ish unit deals.
Okay.
So I'm looking anywhere from 20 to 50, 60 unit apartment complexes that we can add some value to. We can go in there, whether that's with raising private capital and taking them down, doing them with seller financing, whatever that may be, doing kind of that mid-range multifamily asset.
Yeah, or do both. So are you doing syndications now? Is that going to be something that you foresee in your future?
I no, not necessarily syndication. Maybe doing something where I have one or two partners.
Mhm.
Not really like a crowd-funded. I mean, maybe down the road syndication would be fun to do, but I think I'd like to stick to just a couple of us, with my partners, and then just rock out.
I love it. What areas are you focusing on?
Yeah, so Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, and then Bryan and College Station, Texas, where Texas A&M University is. So
Are
it's
you in
about.
Texas now?
Say that again?
Are you in Texas?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep. I'm in Fort Worth.
Okay, so you like investing in your backyard. That's
Oh
smart.
yeah. Yeah, it's huge. I love, and this might not be good, but I love driving by my properties. I love, if something happens and my maintenance people can't go out there, I don't mind going out there. Boots on the ground is really important. Even for my properties in College Station, that's about 2.5, 3 hours away. I still am up there once a month, probably, whether that's meeting with sellers or looking at my own portfolio down there. And so it's been really beneficial to be close to the assets so that you can really make sure you're on top of the management.
So all of your properties now, the 39 unit, they're all in Texas?
Yes.
Oh, nice. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm only in Florida and everyone always tells me like diversify, diversify. I'm like, I know I should, but I
Yeah.
like my I like my state.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you have to play to your advantage. What's your advantage? And, in real estate, everybody should have some sort of unfair advantage. And so that's mine is really sourcing off market deals, then negotiating. And so I think in Florida, stick with it if it's working for you. I see so many people who branch off into all these different states and it's kind of hard to manage it. And so if you can concentrate on one or two markets and really be the main person there, I think that's super important, especially when you're first getting started
Of course.
too, and you don't have a ton of scale yet.
Yeah, I love that. So what systems helped you manage your growth?
Yeah, so property management systems are huge.
Mm,
So we have an online system now that, I mean, everything is automated. We've actually started implementing some AI into the management as
nice.
well, which is pretty cool. So they take care, the software takes care of all the rent payments, late fees. It sends them automatic notifications. If they have a question, there's an AI thing that they can message that solves about 75% of the problems before it gets to the maintenance team, which is awesome. So just being effective on that end and then really making sure we're on top of leasing. Leasing is huge in our portfolio, and so making sure we're on top of leasing when we have vacancies coming up. And really making sure people renew is huge. That's the biggest thing. I have a lot of long-term tenants, and so
Mm,
how can we provide the most value and get them to renew, which is super important as well. Because then, if people renew, you're not having to go do a turnover every year. You're not having to go sit vacant for a couple months and then release it. You just keep rolling. Even if we're getting a hair below market, it's still, I'd rather have somebody renew and just stay in the unit. So
mm.
that takes care of a lot of issues whenever we have consistent renewals.
Did you hire a team like to take care of how do I say it? Oh my gosh, pre-screening a tenant, for instance,
Yeah.
and you hire a team for that?
Yeah, so we that's taken care of all in the software. So
Oh,
it automatically screens them, it does criminal background checks, everything like that, and then it gives me all their information. It gets them like previous landlord referrals and everything like that. So I have all their information to either approve or not approve them, and then everything else is pretty much, hey, what like if there's any red flags, obviously that'll be an issue where they might get denied, but everything else is typically pretty streamlined.
okay. What about maintenance requests?
Yeah, maintenance is fun. So each of our
So
tenants,
fun.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So
Love
each of our
maintenance.
tenants has an online resident portal, so they can go in the resident portal and they can see their lease, their balance due, and they can also submit maintenance request. So again, we just kind of rolled this out. It's an AI feature where before they can submit a maintenance request, this AI box, they get to type it into the AI thing. The AI kind of filters it as if it's urgent, non-urgent, whatever. And then, let's say somebody's toilet's running and they do that as a maintenance request. It'll give them troubleshooting features of how to fix it themselves. And then if they can't fix it or if it's something, then it'll bypass the AI and go directly to my maintenance crew. So that AI has saved us about 60 to 65% of maintenance calls so
Wow.
far, which has been really important. I will say we have a lot of older residents, and so they do not like the AI. So the younger people that we have, which is understandable, and so we're kind of still getting used to what that looks like. But ultimately, yeah, if they have a maintenance issue, they can submit it through the resident portal. They can track it getting done, and so it's all very streamlined, which is great.
Is this something that you created, or what is this AI tool? I need to know.
Yeah, it's not. It's just through the company we use.
Okay.
So
What is it called?
it's called Door Loop.
Door loop. Okay, I've
Yeah,
never heard
a
of
door
that, but
loop,
that's
and so
awesome.
they'll set you up. I think we pay a little bit extra for the AI feature, but
Mm.
it really does streamline it. And so, we just started using them. I'm about two months in, and so we're still getting used to all the features and stuff. But it's been for the most part pretty good so far.
Yeah, it sounds amazing, honestly, because as a landlord, still, like you say, that's why I always say quote unquote passive because there's the maintenance request. If they don't pay, you have to go through eviction, you have to reach out to the tenant directly. So if something can just say, hey, you're late, and then already apply a late fee, that would just streamline the process and you can be hands off from the business to grow it even more.
Oh yeah, everything is automated for the most part. So we've got, automatic late fees. It sends them notifications like to remind them to pay the rent. For instance, in Texas, we just had a big snowstorm, which everybody was freaking out. And so
Mm.
it allowed me to go in there. I do one announcement and I can blast it out to everybody.
Wow.
And so you can, say, hey, leave your faucets dripping, leave your heat on, open your cabinet doors. And so little things like that, instead of reaching out to 100 tenants who we have, it
Right.
blasts out to everybody, and then everybody gets it, and if they have a question they can put a message in through their resident portal. So it's just that's the biggest thing, is the management piece of real estate. And
Right.
so, as I know, as I grow and as you grow, it's like, how can we streamline it as much as possible?
Exactly. I could stay here and talk to you 2+ hours about all of this, but unfortunately, our podcast has a time limit. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna ask you just random questions
Yeah,
before we end.
let's do it.
Tell me about your morning routine.
Morning routine. So I'm typically up around 6 a.m. ish to go to the gym.
Nice.
So I love going to the gym. I'm super active. I've ran a couple marathons. I'm doing an Ironman this year. So I love being active. But the gym is fun because it gets your mind going.
Mm.
It's really good. I'd encourage anybody, whether it's going to the gym for 15 minutes or going for a walk for 15 minutes in the morning, just do something that kind of makes you uncomfortable and gets your body moving in the
Mhm.
morning, because it sets you up for success during the day. And then I'm coming back home, eating breakfast, and I typically have some calls. And then if I've got some task for the maintenance crews, or working on some of our other projects, and then pretty much some office work, most of the day, unless I have a podcast or something. And then I'll either do dinner, and then probably I do run, so I'll run in the evenings, as well. Or I love pickleball, so I'll play pickleball in the evenings as well.
That's awesome. What about any books that you recommend to the audience?
Yeah, I mean, my favorite book, this is really what got me started, is Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Mm.
That's, I mean, just really good fundamentals of, hey, you need to buy assets and stay away from liabilities. Really good foundational book. The other one I really like, you mentioned Brandon Turner. He's got one that's called How to Invest in Real Estate with Low to No Money Down. That book taught me about seller financing, which is really important. So I like that book just because when you're first getting started and you don't have a lot of capital, that book teaches you ways to buy real estate without having that money, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's
So I,
Brandon Turner was my inspiration in this whole real estate investing
yeah,
journey.
that's awesome. Yeah, I would recommend those two books. I mean, those are really have been impactful for me and my success.
That's awesome. Well, thank you oh wait, actually, I forgot. Where can people connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, you can follow or message me on Instagram at Connor Kinney. It's at ConnerKinney. LinkedIn, I post a lot on there. My deals, what I'm doing is Connor Kinney as well. And then, yeah, those are the two best ways to get in touch with me.
Awesome. I'll put everything in the show notes. Thank you so much, Connor, for being here, sharing your story. You're such an inspiration. And I know you're going to inspire a lot others. I can't wait to see like what you do by the time you're 30. That's freaking awesome.
So good to be with you. Thanks so much for having me on. I really enjoyed our time.